Good evening. I'm Bradley Martin, a member of the Library and Workroom Committee, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Foreign Correspondence Club of Japan. And we've only been here since 1945, not here, but here in the hereabouts. But we're getting to be a bit of an institution. And so is our speaker tonight, who showed up in this country only 30 years after the founding of our club, when she was 3 years old, I think. Is that correct?
Something like that, 3 or 4.
Right. Okay, so she had a remarkable childhood and youth in New York. Somehow became best buddies with Joseph Heller, the author of one of my very favorite books, and a subject of a joke that I saw the other day on Facebook, but I can't remember what it was. So I won't, sorry about that. And she went on, somehow she got hooked up with Liz Taylor and Richard Burton. I think the beauty, of course, rubbed off, and so did the literary, because Richard Burton, of course, was a Shakespearean actor. So anyway, she had this remarkable youth before she got to Japan. And then she came here and had a really very interesting story to tell, and she ended up telling it. I won't go on and on about this, but we at Asia Times ran an excerpt, and we got some very nice comments on it. The excerpt concerned her initial experiences in a dojo where her husband was training, and so was she. But I don't want to go on and on and on, because you came here to listen to Karen Hill Anton, and I would like to turn the proceedings over to our speaker. Thank you so much for joining us. By the way, one more thing. Okay, it's not time to ask questions, so never mind.
Okay. Thank you. Andrew, I just have to press this green.
I don't think you have to press.
Oh, I don't have to do anything?
Oh, okay. That's what you're
Okay.
doing. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought you were holding
Please.
a microphone.
If there's more than one button to press, I'm lost. So that's right. Yeah, okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And is this on?
I don't think
No,
it's
yeah,
on.
okay. You can hear me well enough? Great. Thank you all so much for coming. And I thank Bradley, whom I met virtually or in the virtual world, who introduced me to the club and said he thought I should do a book event here. And when I contacted them, they said, well, you know, who do you know at the club? Kind of like, who are you? And I said, well, I know Bradley K. Martin. He told me to contact the library committee. And then it was done. They said, we will make a book event for you. So I am very appreciative. Thank you so much.
It's our honor.
And I thank all of you for coming this evening, for showing up. I know the situation is not as we would all want to be. I would really like to be hugging and greeting all of you, and that's just not possible. But I am happy to see friends, family here, and people who I hope will become friends. So thank you so much all for coming. My presentation this evening will be something of a visual memoir. Some of you have read my memoir. For those of you who haven't, I urge you to, because it's a good book. If I say so myself. Okay, yeah. And the most common things I hear about it is, I couldn't put it down. What one reader wrote and told me, that she set a timer so to make herself stop reading it. A friend of Bill's wrote and said, oh my God, it's 3 a.m. and I can't stop reading it. So it is something of a page turner, and I'm not a boastful person, but I like to think it's a story that is of interest to all people. And, you know, one of the things when I was trying to find a publisher and an agent, they would always ask, well, who is your demographic? Who are you targeting? They want to know that because they want to know how many books they can sell. And they said, you know, you have to decide that. But I thought, no, I don't have to, because I'm targeting people, human beings, men and women, young and old, of every nationality and ethnicity, and of, you know, varied interests and experience. So I really didn't think I had to narrow it. And I can say from the reviews that I've received, I hear from that audience, young and old, men and women, people who have traveled and lived abroad, people who have never left their countries. And in that sense, I feel I've been rewarded that I was able to reach out to such a wide audience. And I thank everyone who has read the book or shared it or recommended it. And again, if you haven't, I urge you to. I will show you some photographs, and I must first apologize for the very poor quality. But I will tell you they're really old photographs, many taken before digital photography. And in that sense, even though they're not good, they're photos, you know, from our family albums. And I just want to share them with you. So, well, I was going to say, don't judge them, go right ahead, you know, but my feeling is really, I just want to share them and share a part of our life and the story that I tell in my memoir, The View from Breast Pocket Mountain. This photo is, well, you can probably tell it's very old. It's me with my husband, Billy. And for those of you who have read the memoir know that we've been friends so long that neither one of us remembers when or where we met. But we do know we were teenagers. I think I was 15 and he was probably 16 and was in New York City. And at the time, he fascinated me with his knowledge of Zen Buddhism and Japanese cuisine, meditation, the philosophy of Bertrand Russell, many things that just, I would say, captured my imagination. And I should also say Latin dance and Latin music, that he loves Latin music, and he knew it a lot better than I did. And of course, you know, we did dance to Latin music, salsa. I'm a better dancer than he is, but he just has to accept that. But this photo was taken in 1974. We were certainly no longer teenagers there, but it was just a few months before we left the United States. And this photo, some of you will recognize from the book. I love it because it shows him as the adoring husband. He doesn't always look at me like that, but anyway, you know. But about this time, he said he'd been invited to Japan and asked, you know, if I would come with him. And I basically said, sure. If he were to ask me now, I would say, well, you know, where will our children go to school? What about healthcare? What about retirement? You know, how will we get a mortgage? You know, or something. But at the time, none of those things were my concerns. So I was happy to make the trip with him. We were, yeah. At the time, again, quite young, and I feel ready to explore something of the world. Now, when we left the United States, we didn't go directly to Japan. We first went to Europe, and there we bought a Volkswagen Bug and basically toured a good part of Western Europe. And later we crossed border to border through the former Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan. Later, we took public transportation through Pakistan, India, Nepal, and Thailand. And I shouldn't neglect to mention, we had our 5-year-old daughter with us. And sometimes, again, when I would approach, publishers or agents, and to say I wanted to write, a memoir, they would say, well, what's so interesting about your life? And I said, well, every life is unique, and I really do believe everyone has a story, but I also know that there are not many women who could say they drove from Amsterdam to Afghanistan with a 5-year-old in a Volkswagen Bug. I'm not saying I'm the only one. There may be another, but I haven't met that person yet. Anyway, on this journey, and it was a 1-year journey, we ended it here in northern Thailand. And in this photograph, we're visiting one of the hill tribes, the Aka Hill tribe. And we didn't have a camera for this entire trip. So you have to believe we even made it because we don't have any proof of it. But an Australian traveling companion took this photograph and he said, he'd send it to me when he returned to his home in Queensland. And this is the photo with the Aka Hill tribe. The last tribe we visited were the Karen Hill tribe. And there is indeed a hill tribe. And then, yeah, some of the other people know, yeah, the Karen Hill. I didn't make it up. We were at the dojo where Billy had been invited for 1 year. And this was a martial arts and yoga dojo. And I write about it in some detail in the book, because it was something of, an unusual experience, interesting in many ways, but at the same time, so some friends said, when they read that part, they feared for me and, the fact that we were living in such a circumstance. We were never in any danger, that's for sure, but it was a very strict and very controlled environment. And after the year was up, both Billy and I felt we'd barely glimpsed Japan. We'd been here for 1 year, but we hadn't seen anything. We'd basically been inside of a dojo. And so he said, let's stay a little longer. That was 46 years ago. Be careful when anyone who tells you let's stay a little longer. We moved straight from the dojo to this place. This is Futokoroyama. And it is from this place that I take the name of my book by calling it The View from Breast Pocket Mountain, because the Futokoro in a kimono, which is really like a breast pocket in a suit, but it is something tucked away, and I just really like the title. This is in Tenryu in Shizuoka Prefecture, where we still live. We don't live there anymore, but some of you who have seen the photograph in the book or on the back cover, know what this place looks like. But often when I would tell people that I lived a very isolated and somewhat, lonely existence, they didn't really get it. But when you see this photo, if I say isolated, I really mean isolated. This was probably as isolated. Well, of course, there are other possibilities to live in an isolated environment, but we lived here in a farmhouse Yeah, well, 7 years, a farmhouse that had no conveniences whatsoever. We had electricity, and we had running water. And as I like to say, it didn't run in hot. I had to boil water if I wanted hot water. And most importantly, we didn't have a flush toilet. And it's kind of hard for me to believe I put up with that for 7 years, but I did. This is the Ngawa of the house. Just shows us sitting there. And the little girl you see in the middle is our daughter Mia, the first of our children to be born in Japan. And she's right over there. You got to raise your hand. She's no longer that little girl. And she's the same little girl who's on the cover of the book. And I think this photograph was taken about the same time. And I don't know if any of you have looked at the cover really carefully, but you see her, walking out of the frame of the picture. But look at the expression on her face. She looks mad. And I think it's because she was probably being neglected by her mother, who was trying to get some writing done. But that's her. And there's Billy dressed in a suit, probably getting ready to go to his job as a professor at a small university in Hamamatsu, which, as I said, this is Tenryu. Hamamatsu at the time and from Futokoroyama was about probably an hour and a half drive that he would go to drive there and then drive back in the evening. So that was 3 hours of commuting every day for like 7 years. Also crazy, but we were young. What can I tell you? This is me with Mia, the same daughter on my back. And quite naturally, I picked up and followed the habits and lifestyle of the community in which I was living. There was certainly not another mother anywhere, in the vicinity of Futokoroyama who didn't carry her children like this. And though some foreigners who would see this, they would say, "Oh, you went native." And I said, no, I didn't go native. I got smart, I was practical because it was a farmhouse. There were always chores. And this was one way I could get chores done, but, by putting my daughter on my back. She, could nap there as necessary. And as you can see, her feet are hanging down below that ombu blanket. She was already quite big, but that's just the way we were living at the time. This photograph shows Mia in the foreground and our eldest daughter now in the back, and it's at a summer festival in our village. And as you can see, all of the girls are dressed in yukata, the summer kimono. And the woman on the right there is Otani-san. She was a neighbor. And I mentioned her in my book, and I describe her as being a busybody, though I don't name her in the book. But Otani-san would often, every time she saw me, she would ask me how tall I was. And I'd tell her, I'm 170 centimeters, not all that tall, but I guess I must have told her that about 5 or 6 times before I realized I might be the tallest person she knows. Because she's, from another era. So I would just tell her, I'm 170 centimeters. The other thing she was very curious about was, what did my family eat for breakfast? She asked me that numerous times, many times. And I tell her, whatever it was. And I think she couldn't imagine that it would be possible to have something that wasn't gohan and miso shiru, fish and skimono or whatever. And I told her, I also make that, and in fact, my children prefer that. But the fact that I might make something like oatmeal was beyond anything she could imagine. And I can assure you, I had some difficulty describing to her what oatmeal was. But I did, I tried. This next photograph is probably the poorest quality of all, but it's one of my favorites. And it's for the reason that on this particular occasion, it was our daughter Mia's kindergarten hapyokai, the recital. And I knew all of the children that her kindergarten classmates would have their grandparents there. But of course, we didn't have grandparents in Japan. And I thought to invite my neighbors, thinking that, they might enjoy such an event, watching little 5-year-olds, jump around on the stage. And they accepted my invitation and came with me. And these ladies, all farmers, are of the Taisho era. And for them, it would be the most natural thing, the most, I would say, expected thing, that they would dress in kimono for this occasion. And as you can see, they all did dress in kimono. Standing next to me is Otani-san, the woman who was in the previous photograph. In the middle, Arai-san. And on the far left is Oi-san. They're all farmers. They all kept me in daikon and shiitake, green tea, and mikan. They were really very kind and lovely women. And they lived to, quite an old age. Oi-san on the far left, she died just after she was 100 years old, but she was also in the fields close to the time she was 100 years old. They've all passed away, and I attended all of their funerals, their ososhiki. Oh yeah, and I have to mention just one other thing. Otani-san, the one standing next to me, her son, that everyone called Yoshibo, he was about the same age as Billy and me. And he used to love to, come and visit our house. He was just next door. He'd come and sit with us, at the kotatsu, sometimes, eating with us. And around Oshogatsu, I had made ozoni, the traditional Japanese stew. And he told me, he said, I like yours better than my mother's. Of course, I never told Otani-san that. This is our son, Mario. And of course, it shows a picture of a very cute little baby. But I don't include this photo just to show a cute child, but to point out the lantern in the background. Now, I'd visited our friend Kuniko Ono, and she had this lantern displayed. And I just admired it. It was, early days in Japan. And, I just found so many, artifacts of Japanese culture beautiful. And she said, oh, I have several, I'll give you one. And I couldn't even imagine, to accept, such a special thing. She said, oh yeah, no, absolutely, no, I'll give you one. So she did. And I was so happy to have it. And I set it up in our living room and displayed it for years. And it wasn't until years later when I was looking at this photograph that I realized this lantern is almost like a symbol of death. It represents death. I mean, they're only displayed at Obon when, as all of you know, Japanese welcome home their ancestors. And I could only, I laugh at myself really that for all of these years, I had this symbol of death or past ancestors in our living room. I will just say it was just one of many cultural faux pas. Many would still follow. That's Mario again with Dr. Mizumoto Sensei. And for those of you who have read the book, you know that I write lovingly of him because he was such a special and wonderful person, and at a very particular time in my life. And I feel I was really fortunate to have him as my doctor and to have given birth at his maternity clinic. And as I say in the book, I say he and his clinic defined the connection between hospital and hospitality. He was just an absolutely wonderful person. And his daughter and son-in-law are now my doctors. And so we've kept in contact. After living 7 years in Futokoroyama at Breast Pocket Mountain, I really had enough. I had more than enough. I wanted, one, be able to see other people and be able to do something other than farmhouse chores. And I decided that we had to move to the city. And the woman that you see here, Kyoko Izuka, had said we belonged actually to the same women's group. And she said, if I move to the city, that she would help me. And it was just the time before my youngest daughter, Leela, was born. So she was my nanny and housekeeper and friend. She's still a very good friend. And I can never almost say enough how indebted I am to her, because I feel I wouldn't have been able to accomplish even half of what I did without her help. And I was so grateful that I could get her help. And I have to say to all of the young women here, the young mothers to be, get help. Especially now, women who have careers, are always trying to feel like, got to balance everything. Well, guess what? You really can't balance it, that well. And I feel that, Western women are told, you can have it all, but Japanese women are told you can do it all. And I just feel that that's a big mistake. If you can get help, it's one of the best things in the world. And I am and will everlastingly be grateful to Izuka-san for the help she gave me. And I see my daughters there, kind of like, I'm showing these old photos. They might not be so happy with them. They're kind of grimacing. You'll just have to put up with it. And so we moved into the city. Billy found this house. This house is actually in the middle of Hamamatsu, in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And like in all Japanese neighborhoods, it's really quite crowded. But this house was part of an estate. And once you were behind this gate, you couldn't see another house. It was absolutely, I would say not remote, but secluded. It was a beautiful house. It was 10 rooms. This is the garden outside of the room that was my room. This was my study in that room. And I think this house was like Juman, wasn't it? Something like that. Yeah. And what can I say? It was a long time ago. That it was very expensive for us at the time, but we felt it was worth it. And I just want to point out one feature in this room, and that is behind my desk are screens that are called Yoshizubari. And these are the bamboo screens that are used in summertime to allow breezes to pass. You take out the shoji, the regular paper screens, and put in these. And I remember asking the owner of the house, because it wasn't an estate, and she lived in the house next door, if it would be okay to use them. And she said, "Oh, yes, of course, but it's so troublesome to take them out." And I said, "Well, I don't mind," and I would do it. And when I did, I saw that they had been very carefully wrapped in newspaper. And the newspaper was from before World War II. It was from the 1930s. That was the last time that they had been used. And I actually saved one of the newspapers, and later rewrapped them very carefully. But this is the kind of house it was. It was really a relic of traditional Japanese design. It was so beautiful. I think we were very fortunate we had a chance to live there. Here's Mario again when he was just a baby. And just around this time, I had started to study calligraphy, which was really my entry in a way into Japanese culture. I'd always wanted to study something of Japanese culture, and I didn't know if it would be ikebana or sumie, but I was very much attracted to shodo. And I was accepted by a teacher in Shizuoka City, Okiropo Sensei, and who I was told was one of the 5 fingers of Japan, to denote his very high status as a calligrapher. And of course, I was quite intimidated by that, but I was also very happy that he accepted me as his student. And I can say I practiced very hard, and as you can see, even just plant a baby in the middle of my practice, and as long as he didn't move, I would keep writing. In the memoir, I also mentioned about Okiropo Sensei, that he never gave instruction. He never said, do this, do that. This is the way you're supposed to write or hold the brush, or this is how you should rub the ink. As students, we were really expected to observe and endeavor, to just try our very best. And it was a long time before I really gathered that was his message, because in the beginning, I really thought, why am I traveling? And it was really a trip to, travel from the farmhouse to his studio in Shizuoka City. And I thought, why, just to watch him writing. But it really became clear over time that this was a manner of teaching. And I really learned a lot from him, just watching him write. And of course, I am very grateful to him that he accepted me as a student. When he passed away, and then he was well into his 80s, I had a bit of a hiatus until I started writing again. And I found a teacher, a woman in our neighborhood, who encouraged me to seek a rating in calligraphy. And in this particular one, I was practicing for the EQ, doing many bad ones before I could get a good one. But I did pass the EQ, became Shodan, and then Nidan. And this just shows some practice for an exhibition. And I include this so you can see, when we would work for it on an exhibition, I usually did 60 or 70, maybe 80 of these before my teacher would choose one and say, okay, this one we will put in the exhibition. And as a senior student, we were told you never bring more than 2 or 3 to show your teacher, because it was almost considered impolite to show them poor writing. That after a certain time, we were expected to be able to not so much judge the writing, but to know what is good writing, what is a good show, and that when you show your teacher something, she should be able to choose from something that's good, and not just some drafts that you have. This is also just some of my writing. The one on the left is the Rantejo, which is probably the most famous piece in calligraphy. And I did this just because I really liked it so much. And you can only see part of it there, and it's probably 100 characters, but the full piece is more like 500 characters. And the piece on the right was a piece that was in an exhibition. And this I just include because of the the recent anniversary of the Tohoku disaster. Our eldest daughter, who is a textile designer and confectioner, with her business partner, had created these handcrafted chocolates to sell to raise money for the Tohoku rescue. And they asked me to do some calligraphy as the for wrapping paper. And these are just some incidental pieces. That's me writing. That's the other style of writing where you actually have to sit seiza on the floor on the paper, to be able to do that kind of writing. One of my favorite pictures shows me relaxing after writing for hours. Many people have asked me, what's it been like, being the only person who looks like you where we live? And living in the countryside, I can tell you, I am the only person who looks like me. That's been the case for, over 40 years. If I weren't comfortable with it, I'd be crazy now. Because if I go to the supermarket or the dentist or the post office or the pharmacy or the park or the swimming pool, I'm the only one who looks like this. But I also have to point out, it's obvious. I a different color, I'm a darker color, but please notice too, I'm also always the tallest person wherever I am. And again, I'm not that tall. 170 centimeters is not that tall, but I am also the tallest person. These days I study hula, and I'm in a class with, I think about 15 or 16 ladies. And in that class too, I am the tallest. My legs are the longest. My arms are the longest. And we dance in formation, they have to give me more room because just basically my size. So that's what it's been like, being the only one who looks like I do. And again, Tenryu, Hamamatsu, Shizuoka prefecture is nothing like Tokyo. Tokyo is quite a cosmopolitan place. And even my daughter tells me at her children's kindergarten, there are other foreign children, and it's almost impossible for me to imagine such a thing. When our children were in school, there were no other foreign children of any hue. There were, only Japanese children. This is my calligraphy class, and I'd say even sitting seiza, I'm the tallest one. That's John Denver. Some of you recognize him from the book. And I know that he came to visit us in Tenryu. And John absolutely loved it there. And he took a lot of photographs, and he said he would, and that's what him holding our son Mario. Anyway, he said he would send me some photographs when he returned to his home in Colorado, and this is one of the ones he sent. This is the river just below our house at Futokoroyama at Breast Pocket Mountain. And that river flows into this one. This is where we live now. And I don't have a pointer. I don't think if I pointed, you would be able to tell, but our house is at the very top of that hill, almost in the middle of the photo towards the left. And this river in front is also part of the Tenryu River that flows into the same river in the previous picture. And if you follow that mountain, you can see way in the background, that would lead to Breast Pocket Mountain. That's about a 30-minute drive away. This is our home now. As you can see, I prominently display my calligraphy everywhere. This is the opposite end of that same room in our home. And I include this photo to show this tapestry or textile design. And this is the work of Yamauchi Takeshi, who is one of the deshi or disciple or followers of Serizawa Keisuke, who is I would say, major member of the Minge movement, who happens to also be from Shizuoka. And I saw this piece at an exhibition, and I admired it. I thought it was so beautiful. I would love to have it, but I was also satisfied, just to admire it. But it was the last day of the exhibition, and the gallery owner actually came over, took this tapestry off the wall, folded it up, and gave it to me. And I said, what are you doing, really? And he said, well, if you like it so much, and find it beautiful, you should have it. And I said, but I can't pay for it. And he says, well, you pay me when you can. I said, well, I don't know when I can, when I would have the money to pay for it. He said, whenever, it doesn't matter. And I accepted it, and I insisted he take my meishi so he'd be able to contact me or send the police or whatever. But no, but I mean, he did, but I mean, he'd seen me in the gallery before, and he said, no, this is absolutely not necessary. You should have something that you appreciate so much and find beautiful. He just reiterated, I have no doubt that you will pay me. And of course, I did. And I'm glad that he almost insisted that I take it, because I would have been sorry that I didn't buy it, just because I didn't have the money at the time. But I like to say what a wonderful experience that was, of trust, of kindness, of generosity, of thoughtfulness, friendliness, and that's been so much of my experience. In life in general, but it's certainly in Japan. And these are my children. On the far left is Leela, our youngest daughter, who's sitting back there. Will she raise her hand? She asked. Who's now living and working in Tokyo with her husband, Chris, who is sitting next to her. And that's our son, Mario, who lives in Kyushu with his family. Our eldest daughter, Nanao, who lives outside of New York with her family. She's our only child that was born, not born in Japan. She's born in Denmark. And then our eldest daughter, second daughter, Mia, the one who's on the cover of the book, and there she is already again, who's living here with her husband, Christian, and there are two young children. They're now settled in Tokyo. Very happy to have them here. Very sorry we don't get to spend, well, we had spent plenty of time together, but because of the situation, don't spend time with them now, or you get to see our two young grandchildren. But the day will come of that, I am confident. And this very last photo is our daughter Leela's wedding to her husband, Chris, in North Carolina. And I include this as the last photo because I feel this is the Anton clan. You can look and see for yourself. We represent multitudes. And through my children's marriages, I now have relatives in Kyushu, in North Carolina, in Austria, and I just feel how lucky I am I couldn't be more fortunate than that. I have not just my own wonderful family and this extended family and friends, but now their in-laws too, who have welcomed our family warmly, and I consider them all good friends. And I am happy to be the matriarch, or I consider myself the matriarch in this family. So thank you all so much for listening and going down this journey with me and seeing these photographs. And I now welcome your questions. I hope you have plenty. Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'll make a couple of announcements here. The book, which you can see right here facing you, and it's over here for sale. Ms. Anton's family members are selling them. Okay, if you have a question, please come to the microphone, the standing microphone. Here is the standing microphone, and identify yourself, then ask a question. After you speak, the staff will come and clean the mic in case you have any cooties.
Apparently, we all have cooties now, but anyway.
I have never had cooties.
Well, neither
I'm
have I.
perfectly pure.
I beg your pardon.
All right. And we will also have questions from our online participants, which will be fed to me so that I can feed them to our author here. Anyway, who would like to take the first shot here?
Be brave, be brave.
Come up. Make yourselves comfortable. Okay. Well, I'll ask you one.
Okay.
How did you get into the writing business? We're all writers here in this, or not all of us, but that's what we're about. How did you get into the journalism business?
Actually, yeah, well, I never thought about so much as getting in the business, but, you know, originally, I wrote an article for the Japan Times. They, I forget, well, it's more than 30 years ago, had a, yeah, what would you say? They invited readers of the Japan Times to submit a 500-word article about their, you know, experience in living in Japan. And this was for foreigners living here. And I was told about this by Jean Pierce, a very well-known columnist for the Japan Times. And I thought, oh, you know, great. And she knew I wrote, and she said, you know, you should write something and submit it. And I did. And I sat down, I wrote something, of course, on a typewriter, and didn't have, you couldn't do word count. But I wrote it, and I probably counted each word. And when I looked up, it was like 2,000 words. It wasn't 500 words. But being totally unprofessional at the time, I submitted it anyway. Now, for any of you people out there who might want me to write something, if you ask me for 500 words, you're not going to get a 501. It's not going to happen. I'll give you 500 words. I might give you 499, but I would not go over the word limit ever. In any case, at that time, I was absolutely raw. I wrote the article, I submitted it, and they, not only did they not reject it, they accepted it for a Sunday feature. And they wanted asked for photographs to accompany it. And the managing director at the time, Gyo Honey, was very, very happy with what I had done. And he really encouraged me to write more. And I'm very thankful to him, because this is one of the things you need when you're starting out is the encouragement of others who recognize yeah, that you have ability or talent or a story to tell or whatever it is, but receiving encouragement means a lot. And I must say, any opportunity I have to encourage someone else in whatever they may endeavor, I try to do that.
Yes, please.
Sure.
Here's the microphone here, yes, if you don't mind. We don't need an elaborate self-identification.
Yeah.
Karen, I'm Susana Gumagay.
I
Yeah,
know you
yeah.
Take the mask off.
Yeah, I read your book and I love it. Yeah. And I always found it fascinating. The fact that you accepted the culture, like in a very humble way. Yeah. Usually when foreigners, I grew up in Venezuela, but when we all come here, we go like, oh, imposing ourselves, kind of, right? But you were like totally humble, trying to melt with the culture and absorb the culture, which is very, very good. Now, my question is,
Mhm.
what is the most difficult thing that you have found at the beginning when you just came about the Japanese culture?
Yeah, everything. I found I would say a lot difficult and challenging, but probably the most challenging thing was that people did not verbalize, they did not talk as much, they did not express themselves in words as much, they didn't explain. And I felt like I was always looking for that and very frustrated that I wasn't getting it. And as I say in the book, it's like with my Shodo sensei, the fact that, even, with him not talking, I actually started crying because I was just that frustrated. But I mean, Susanna, you say it's, I was humble. I don't know that I, was humble or had humility, but what I found out that I didn't come to Japan to change Japan or change people here or, insist that they learn the American way or something. And I realized that there was something for me to learn. And that the best way I could do that would be to pay attention, really. It's just like, kind of like step back a little bit, maybe be quiet. Maybe the thing you're thinking doesn't have to be spoken or doesn't have to be spoken at this time. And it just, I would say it instilled in me a sense of self-reflection. Guess what? You don't know everything. There are things for you to learn. Who knows? You may grow, you may change. And I certainly feel that I was able to grow and change.
Really? I find it very interesting because I came to Japan. My parents are Japanese. It's not that I didn't know anything about the culture, but I came to Japan like 23 years ago, 24. But it was I still had the culture difference, the culture, and I'm not shocked, but my attitude was an eternal complaint about, minimum things. Yes. And that I don't see that reflected in your book. Yeah. And I find it beautiful. It's like, make me want to go back in time and have your attitude instead. Right. But it's really, your book really lovely.
Well, Susanna, I would say, the fact that you're aware of that is that you don't have to go back in time. You start right where you are. It's just like, it's like you're a young person. You still have, much to learn and ways to grow. And it's like, whatever new knowledge you have, you just incorporate that in your life now. It's just like, you're still on your journey.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I like what you said about, can you hear me? Yeah, I liked what you said about being quiet and listening to people, because actually that's the best way to do journalism. The good journalists do not talk all the time, even though on television you might imagine that they do, but the best journalists don't. We try to, in fact, there's a trick. We purposely say nothing for a while, just because we know that it will irritate the other person and make them start talking.
You
Right.
don't want that.
But anyway, what this aspect of Japanese culture that you picked up is precisely the best journalistic attribute.
Ah,
So that's interesting as
Mhm.
as your career developed.
yeah.
Can you?
Yeah.
I want to go back to your experience at the dojo, and when I was reading it, my only question was, why did you put up with this? I mean, you were a trailing spouse. Why,
Exactly.
why did you have to do it yourself? Can we hear that story?
I know. You can blame him. That's my husband. He's the one. No, it was really, I mean, something, quite simple. He'd come to do this study and for 1 year and was in a commitment. And I felt I could put up with it, and when I no longer could, I made it clear, that we had to leave. But I mean, that was also, a learning experience. It was just something I didn't enjoy that much. I had no interest in martial arts whatsoever, like none, absolutely none. And this is, there were classes in martial arts throughout the day. But as readers of the book will find, I was able to, work my way around the dojo and, get out of classes, hide. I was literally hiding some of the time just so, I wouldn't, have to show up in a class. And I just, I felt I was buddying my husband so he could finish his, year of study there. And when the year was up, man, we were out of there. What can I tell you? Yeah.
No Bruce Lee movies.
No Bruce Lee movies. I don't know. Maybe he's a Aikido expert now and can do join in a Bruce Lee movie. I don't think so.
Who would like to come up and ask? Yes, please, Vicky. And be careful of your arm.
Yeah.
You spend
That's
too much
not
time
my
in the dojo.
problem.
Poor thing.
My motto in Japan is "Itsumoru warudo." Thank you so much, Karen. Vicky Byer, for those of you who don't know. Thank you so much for your talk. It definitely added additional color to the book that I was privileged to read the beta version of.
Yes. Very
I-
grateful to you.
I remember we were talking as we were eating our dinner about how 40 years ago it was so difficult to find any kind of foreign foods, and you really did have to live a Japanese lifestyle to be comfortable here. And when you describe living on Breast Pocket Mountain and being so isolated, approximately the same period of time before, I began to think about how on earth did you sort out the practicalities of food? And I'm wondering, is that because you had that year in the dojo to learn some of the fundamentals of Japanese cooking, or are you just such a creative? How did you do that?
Well, I am such a creative person.
Well, there you go.
We'll clear that up first. No, but actually, and though I only sort of glide over it in the book, you can say that in case you have another
No, I'm
question.
just gonna go
No,
sit.
but Bill had studied Japanese cooking. So he taught me quite a bit. And so by the time we came to Japan, I knew how to make onigiri, how to make dashi and some, really simple nimono dishes and things like that. I'd actually learned from him. And then in the dojo, I had to make Japanese food, but I wasn't starting from zero because I had never, studied it formally, but I picked it up. And of course, I love the food and I always was happy to learn to cook it. But in Futokoro Yama, what can I tell you? That's that's what was there. There was nothing available. The nearest store was, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes away driving or something like that. And I don't know that you could even buy butter in the store. I mean, there was just, you ate Japanese food or you didn't eat, basically. But I mean, I was happy with that. I never had a problem with Japanese food. I absolutely love it. And Yeah, glad. I would say learn to cook it. Some things I learned, but some of it, I fake a lot of Japanese dishes. I can tell you that, like my ozoni. Yeah, I call it my style, and I do it. But I promise you it's good. Anyone who shows up at Oshogatsu, at the Anton family, I will serve you ozoni, my style.
Well, I don't know if being an old guy, I'm not sure I want any ozone. We have the ozone bets every year about how many old people are going to choke on the.
Oh my goodness, oh no.
Well, are any family members, do you have some questions that you've always wanted to ask mom here? And now you can ask her in public.
Go right ahead.
Come right up. Okay.
Tell them it's not true. I didn't eat the shoji paper, but you did.
Oh, yes. Okay, please.
Hello, I'm Tom Pedersen. I'm a friend of Karen's for about 20 years, but do I want to pick it up?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
can you hear me okay? But I never felt I knew you until I read your book. And I remember I asked Karen, I said, well, I've known you all this time. How come I didn't know all this stuff about you? And you said you were too busy living to really recount the stories of your life. So I really appreciate that you put them in this lovely book. It was a page turner. I was late for work a couple of times. I stayed up too late and all those things. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I feel I know your children a little bit through your book as well, which I just haven't had the pleasure of meeting them. So thank you for sharing it. So my question is very simple.
Yeah.
Your book is for all people. It doesn't have a demographic. It resonated with me. It resonated a lot of young people. I'm sure it resonated with the family, even with the embarrassing pictures. But I'm wondering, when are you going to publish it in Japanese? Because I think it's such a great story to share in Japan. I really want to encourage you to do that. And so
Thank you
it's a
so
very
much,
simple
Tom.
question. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I will tell you all that Tom is an old and very good friend, but he wasn't my boss, but can I say that he hired me when he was at Shinsei Bank.
Yeah.
I don't know, were you the CEO of something? You were the head of something. I don't know what.
Yeah.
And I was so glad you gave me that opportunity to work with you. It was
We were
absolutely,
lucky.
yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was wonderful.
So when's the Japanese?
Yeah,
book
when
coming?
is it coming? We will see, but actually that conversation has started. I
Okay,
can tell
great.
you, yeah,
Great.
that quite a few people have said that this is a book Japanese people should read in Japanese.
Absolutely.
And maybe, the way I write, which is, also the way I speak, it might be a difficult or challenging book to translate, but not impossible. And there's so many capable translators, I feel, in Japan. So I think we will see a Japanese version of The View from Breast Pocket Mountain.
And then the Netflix after that. Right?
Yeah. Then the sequel. I've been told, it's like, when's the sequel coming? When's the movie?
Yeah.
When's Oprah going to have you on?
So thank you very much.
So
Thanks,
you're Tom, did you say?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, you want to tell us about how Shinsei pioneered miniaturization?
No.
That's my bank, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you still there?
No, I left a long time ago.
Okay. Shinsei Bank, if you want to make a deposit or a withdrawal, you go to the 7-Eleven ATM. That's what you do. Those are the branch banks of Shinsei Bank. A mystery to me, but anyway, you can write that book later, Karen. Now that you've got this one, I still want to know more about this dojo business. I just kind of wish that somebody would volunteer to stand up and read a passage from that. Anybody who's used to this book wants to stand up and read a little bit of the Dojo passage? I'll do it. Where's the book?
Do you have it?
The book's standing around there. I have to come around here and get it. Okay. What page do you think I should start on, Karen?
Without actually looking, I don't know where it begins. Wait a second.
Okay.
Or maybe what about my copy? Oh, let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Maybe I'll read it.
All right. She's gonna
Okay.
read it.
all right.
We'll have a
Yeah,
reading
I mean, I
private.
just wrote
Author.
a very brief part. I mean, I just happened to open to this. That Yoshida Sensei was despotic. Can you hear me well enough? That Yoshida Sensei was despotic, first, last, and always, became his most salient characteristic. He was a dictator above all else. As long as his rule was followed, there weren't any problems. When that rule was tested, there were. Yoshida Sensei usually had his meals brought to him on trays in his rooms, but on occasion he would surprise everyone and sit among the trainees in the dining room. One evening, when he had so honored us with his presence, one of the men in training to become a teacher went to Sensei's table to pour his tea. I heard afterwards his mistake had been not to sit in the formal seiza position as he did it. As swiftly as a samurai drawing a sword to detach a head, Sensei threw the cup of hot tea in the errant teacher's face. The teacher in training bowed and made apologies. The following day, when he came in the kitchen for a second helping of rice, I could see one side of his face was still red. I wanted to say something, but there was nothing to say. He totally accepted the mishap as his fault. Yoshida Sensei was increasingly violent, becoming furious during Kyoka Taiso when someone didn't execute an exercise properly. Often now we'd hear the loud whack of his bamboo stick as it landed across someone's body. And although Sensei was usually indulgent with the children, now they were crying more because of his disciplining. Strict to a fault, his behavior with the general dojo population was now pathological. You don't think he'd hit Nanao, our eldest daughter, I said to Billy when he returned from Tokyo one weekend. I already had any number of plans for what I would do if he did, and fantasized what I would do if he even hit Billy. And although Billy was now quite skilled in judo and aikido, I saw myself jumping in the fray to help. I didn't have to think about what I'd do if he were to hit me, knowing I'd instinctively protect myself. The day wouldn't come when I'd be on my knees before him asking for his forgiveness for some unintended offense. Billy often spoke of Yoshida Sensei as a charismatic character and was without a doubt impressed by him. A true acolyte, he attended classes reliably and applied himself to learning Japanese. But he wasn't blind, and he knew I was just putting up with being there, sticking it out so he could fulfill his 1-year commitment. Ever since Billy went to the language school in Tokyo, I was taking my futon to the gaijin room. Noda knew, but never said anything. I guess he thought it was all right to have conjugal visits since the dojo wasn't supposed to be a prison. But this Friday night when Billy returned, instead of making love like any normal couple would do after being separated, we lay in the narrow futon drawing up contingency plans in case Yoshida Sensei hit one of us. I'll grab him and jump out of the window with him, Billy said, completely serious. Oh, Billy, don't be nuts. It'd be more nuts to try to fight the dude. We both had to laugh at our contingency plans. They went on into the night and getting funnier and funnier and more desperate. It was time to leave, and this incident sealed it. There was another incident coming up. Thank you.
You further questions here? Yes, please. Yes, yes. Nicely read and nicely written.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I wasn't quite prepared, so I was, yeah, and I don't like to read out loud, but I hope it
Yeah,
was
you did
okay.
a beautiful
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the lovely talk. I really love it. And I'm right now reading a book and I can't put down, I can't put
Oh, you
it
see,
down.
I told you.
Okay, my name is Kaori Fujimoto. I met Karen a couple of years ago, and so I'm a translator and an essayist. So my question is from the writer's perspective. I just wonder, okay, I assume what you wrote in the book, it's just a fragment of what happened, what you have experienced. And how did you frame the whole book? How did you pick the events and the experiences and your emotions to write in this book?
Right. And of course, I have to tell everyone that Kaori Fujimoto is a writer herself who writes in English. And you do not know she is Japanese. Her writing is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
No, it
Thank you.
really is. What can I tell you? No, it was really a process. It was really a process. First of all, I'm not young. I'm telling the story really, my whole story, not starting with my birth. And I have quite a few stories to tell, but you cannot tell them all. So I had to make choices. I had to make hard choices. And for the people who ask me about a sequel, I can tell you, there are all the chapters that I cut out because I had to cut out a lot. I worked with a developmental editor and they were really, well, she was, it isn't so much strict, but they really make you think, what of the writing do you need now to tell the story? Because you can't tell everything. You have to make choices and you have to be judicious about your choices. And the more I did that, the more I cut out, I think the closer I got to what my story was. Editors also tell you, hey, look, you're not Barack Obama. And he can write a 700-page memoir and get it not only published, but of course it's a bestseller. But you really have to think, you do not want to go over 300 pages.
Mm.
So I might have cut out 200 pages. Don't go over 80,000 words. And this is like 86,000 words. But I just did my best really to connect with the incidents in my life that I felt told my story as best I could. And I didn't so much, I didn't so much try to put emotion in it as really return to those places, those experiences in my life to because these things, they don't die, they don't go away, they don't disappear. And as writers, I think we have maybe a special ability to be able to connect with that. For example, when I wrote about my father, when I was a teenager, that's many, many years ago. But when I wrote dialogue of my father speaking, I could hear him speaking. I didn't have to make that up. I could hear him speaking. If it wasn't the exact word, or they added something extra, I think it was okay. But it was his voice. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you
I don't
so
know
much.
if I answered your question fully,
did,
but
thank
yeah,
Go ahead, ask another question. Your questions are very good.
yeah.
Are you
Thank you.
volunteering to translate her book?
Well, if I qualify. Okay, but thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, County.
All right, who's next?
Let's hear for some. Well, I don't want to put these young ladies on the spot. Like Haruka or Akane-chan. Oh, good. There you go.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you for coming forward.
I'm talking as I'm thinking, but
good.
yeah, so my name is
You can
Akane.
take your mask off so we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you for your talk. I was very lucky to be invited to this session today by Mia-san, who I work with. And I was also very lucky to know about you and your book via the session Mia-san and Haruka there held at the company a few weeks ago. And I think my question is, I love how you started off the book with about your travel with your husband and then settling down at the Best Pocket Mountain. And I think traveling through different countries, discovering new things, and settling down in the very much countryside in Japan and understanding the people and blending in with the culture is a very different experience that requires very different skills. And I want to know how you did all that with such elegance.
Oh.
It sounded like you did it so natural, and I want to know if that's like something that you're born with, or you have to like really challenge yourself to do all that. And this is not a question, but I really admire the respect and friendship you have with your husband. You've been together for like more than half
100 years.
I feel that you're very lucky that you have found each other, and because not so many people have that.
You never know. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. What can I say? You've read the book, so you know I don't paint our marriage as a fairy tale. It was not. It is not. You know, but I do feel fortunate that you know I well, not met my husband, but actually married one of my best friends. So that it just, you know, turned out like that. But, and even with that, and as one of the, you know, by the way, it's, well, one person told me, well, why did you, you know, you have to, you know, confess so much about, you know, yourself and your marriage or whatever. And I said, but, well, no, I'm not confessing anything. I'm telling the truth. I'm trying to be honest, because I can also say there's like, you know, I know that there are people who have admired us as, you know, as a young couple, as an American couple, you know, settled in Japan. And, you know, and from the outside, it may look like, oh, it was always smooth sailing. And it wasn't, you know, we also had very difficult times. And so, and I write about that in the book. And you're very kind to say I'm elegant. I like that. You know, I love applying that word to myself. But anyway, yeah, I think some is, you know, personality and you know, and comes naturally. But I think, you know, settling down in Japan and in the countryside, I was willing to do it. That's one of the things I would say, that I was willing to do it. And I realized in order to do it, I had to accept this country, this society, this people, this culture. And it's like, first do that. And then see, you know, how and where I can fit in. And that, yeah, I mean, I've never been brash, but I'm also, you know, I'm not a shy person. You know, I can say, yo, you know, I'm an American woman. I come here, you don't tell me how I should dress or talk or whatever. But I realized that that's not, you know, the way I want it to go. And I thought, you know, to make a place for myself and for my family, for, you know, for my children, then maybe I could, yeah, actually change, really. And what was I feel, you know, interesting for me, because I was also in the process of self-discovery. I found that there was a side of myself I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know I was a person who could have, relationships or, create friendships that were not built around talking or hanging out or whatever it is, that there were other, ways of being. And well, yeah, great. It's like, it's a big world with a lot of different people and a lot of ways of living. And I, you know, was fortunate that I also found this way. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Everything you shared with us tonight was very inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Yes, please.
The speaker gets 3 glasses of wine. This is number 2.
Okay. This is Sachiko Aoki. I also work as an interpreter and translator, but doing a lot of international exchange programs. But anyway, I really enjoyed your book. And my question is, I don't know if I could put this in a comprehensive way, but you found your place here in Japan and you've got a lovely companion to share it with, having done the journey together. Do you ever find conflict now settling down in Japan? Do you miss going back to the States? Or I don't know. I don't think I've got a very much of an American upbringing myself. And I got a Japanese husband. We call this an international marriage because my upbringing is so American. He's so Japanese, but we share a lot. And sometimes I miss that American part, the communications, lots of customs stuff that I miss in part, but I don't think I could fit back in there exactly because I'm so much Japanese now and I've got a whole family here. So I'm just wondering how you are
Same, listen.
now. Do you feel very comfortable? Do you have moments of frustrations? How is it going forward?
Thank you, Sachiko, for
Mhm.
that, I would say thoughtful question. What can I, it's ongoing. Having a life here, but I am as firmly settled here as I could be anywhere is the way I look at it. And I don't think about, I wish I were living in the United States. Well, actually, when my daughters were living in Los Angeles in a very nice places, I thought, oh, wow, this would be nice. I'd like to be living here too. But to give up my life in Japan, it's almost impossible, really, as practically speaking, for me to think about it. But no, I don't miss living in the United States, and it's not that I don't enjoy it. It's like I love traveling there, or going to visit. But I'm not in this like state of, I really wish I was living in New York. It's like this is happening and that's happening and I'm not there with it and I'm really a New Yorker or something. That's all is like just completely gone. When I'm in the United States, it's fun. I enjoy. I mean, and again, as I say, I get to visit beautiful places and stay in really nice neighborhoods, and it's like I really enjoy what's really great about the United States. But I don't think so much as I should really uproot myself now and go to live in the United States. It's not happening.
You've got lots of friends here too.
Yeah, lots of friends here. If I were to uproot myself anywhere, it'd probably be to move to Tokyo, which I would love to do. Many people think, especially since both Billy and I are New Yorkers, from New York City, from Manhattan, right in the middle of the city, that they think that, we first lived in Tokyo or Osaka or whatever, and then moved to Shizuoka. We've been living there all of the time. It's like, now close to 46 years. And one of the reasons we chose living, so far out in the country and in nature, so our children could, have that kind of an environment growing up in that environment. But now they're grown. and they live in Tokyo. Isn't that nice? And I feel like, whoa, it's like, I hope we didn't miss the boat, but not getting out of the country sooner. But yeah, what could I'd say, in the final analysis, I'm satisfied with my life. I'm happy to be able to go places. Of course, with the current situation, can't travel, but if I can travel to the United States, to Europe, and other places in Asia, whatever, visit my children, have them visit, I'm fine. Where we are.
Well, very
Yeah.
nice to have you around, though. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you. And we have one final question from Mr. Gibson. Where are you, Daryl?
Hi, I'm actually in the wilds of Shizuoka, and you essentially answered my question already, in that I was wondering, you sort of escaped the dojo to Tenju, and then I was wondering, how tempted were you to leave Tenju, go back to Tokyo? And if not, why not?
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. And I don't know if you heard the last question, but we never lived in Tokyo, ever. Yeah. And I say in the book that I hope you've read that.
I apologize, I have yet to read it.
Then you'll want to read it.
That's why I'm watching.
Anyway, yeah, no, I literally, I could count the times I'd been to Tokyo at a certain point. When I started doing consulting work here, then I was coming to Tokyo quite often, and that started around the year 2000. I would come up and, sometimes spend 2 or 3 days, two or three times a month, but I never lived in Tokyo. I still get lost in Tokyo. I'm still fascinated by Tokyo. And yeah, and if it weren't for the pandemic, I would still be wishing I lived here, but I don't. Yeah, we still live in the wilds of Shizuoka.
As do I at the moment.
Where are you, by the way?
I'm in Nishi-Izu near Matsuzaki,
Nishizu, Matsuzaki.
the
I
west side
know
of the
Izu.
Izu Peninsula.
West side of the Izu. Gotcha. Okay. But is that near Shuzenji or no?
Further south,
South,
closer
okay.
to Fumoda.
Okay. Shuzenji, what we love.
Thank
Okay,
you.
well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, we're nearing the end of our time. And since you want to move to Tokyo, we are able to present you a membership for 1 year, an honorary membership in the guest membership in the Foreign Correspondence Club of Japan. And then you can just kind of hang out here with us. You've made a wonderful impression on any who didn't know you before. So we'd be delighted to have you join us. And here is your membership paperwork. Thank you so much. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Please come back again and again.
I would be happy to.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evening is done. Thank you.
Thank you.